Yeah, this is the last time I'm going through the cat. Do you want to come? I'm going to go through the digestive organs. So as far as up in the thoracic cavity, the superior part of the body, you should be able to identify this. This is the oral cavity, so don't tell me mouth, oral cavity. And then teeth and tongue, you should be able to identify those structures, but also know how they participate in digestion. The only other organ that you need to be able to identify on the cat, now this is just the cat. Everything else you should be able to identify on models and microscope slides. But on the cat, you just need to be able to identify this esophagus. So the esophagus lies on the posterior side of the trachea. So this tube right here, I know it's the trachea because it's more sturdy. You see those cartilage rings. So this is the trachea, which is in respiratory. But right behind it, on the posterior side of that trachea, is this muscular tube called the esophagus. The esophagus will run parallel with the trachea down on the posterior side of the thoracic cavity. It will enter through the diaphragm and then into the stomach, okay? So here's the diaphragm, which separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic cavity. Pull this liver away, here's the stomach. This sac-like organ, kind of a C-shaped, this is the stomach. Lying on the anterior side of the stomach, this is the liver, multiple lobes, huge organ, tucked right up underneath the diaphragm. This is the liver. Sandwiched in between the lobes of the liver, this balloon-shaped organ, that's the gallbladder. Okay? It can be really green depending on the concentration of the bile at the time of death, but that's the gallbladder. So pull the liver away, back to the stomach. Attached to the greater curvature of the stomach, all of this loose connective tissue with fat embedded in it, this is the greater omentum. So greater omentum attached to the greater curvature of the stomach. This is going to lie on top and cover all of the organs of the abdominopelvic cavity. Reason for that is because we don't have a cage like in the thoracic cavity. The thoracic cavity has, ribs and hyaline cartilage and a sternum which protects the viscera. The abdominal pelvic cavity doesn't have that. So this greater omentum serves for cushion and protection, okay? Attached to the lesser curvature of the stomach, if you see all this fat embedded right there, okay, this is the lesser omentum attached to the lesser curvature of the stomach. Coming directly off of the stomach, where we start to see the small intestine, this is what part of the small intestine? Duodenum. So if I ask the small intestine and it's close to the stomach, in really close proximity to the stomach, it would be the duodenum. And embedded in the mesentery, so the mesentery is all of this spider web stuff that kind of holds together the intestines. That's called mesentery. That's where all of the blood vessels and nerves will be embedded that supply the small intestines. So embedded in that mesentery, right below the duodenum, this grainy organ right here, that's the pancreas. Okay? Again, really close proximity to the duodenum because what did we say? It secretes its contents into the duodenum, so it makes sense that it's so close to it. Okay? So this is the pancreas. If I ask small intestine, but it's somewhere in the middle, not close to the stomach, not close to the large intestine, what would you say? What's the middle part of the small intestine? Jejunum. Okay, so jejunum. Follow this around. You'll see an area right here. Do you see how there's a size discrepancy between this part of the intestine and this part of the intestine? This is the small, this is the large. Right? So if I ask the part of the small intestine that's right next to the large intestine, what part of the small intestine is this? What's the part right before the large intestine?
The ileum.
Ileum, okay? Right here, where the large intestine begins, this C-shaped portion, this is the cecum, okay? Embedded in here would be the ileocecal valve, which regulates the passage of chyme from the small intestine into the large intestine. In cats, here's our large intestine or our colon. You see it descending and it will eventually enter into the rectum and then the anal canal, which you don't have to identify on the cat. But in cats, there's not an ascending, transverse, and descending colon or large intestine like in humans. So on the models, the human models, I can ask ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoidal, rectum, anal canal. But on the cats, I can only ask large intestine, because they don't have those three parts. And then the last thing to point out is on this left-hand side, this organ that kind of runs along, like parallel with the side, this is the spleen. Kind of looks like a big tongue. This is the spleen. Okay? And that's it for the